What is going on, everybody? I'm glad to be with you tonight. This is nothing personal. It's just Bills. I am host JTM. Is brought to you by Checkers, and I got my man in the building with me right now, James, the NFL pedigree, like they're calling former NFL running back James Mallory. As normal, James, what is going on?
What's up? What's up? What's up, man? Yo, JT, let's get it today. Y'all already know how we do.
Yep. So we will be joined by, I think, at some point. Mookie's running a little bit late tonight. Bills beat writer Muki Hawkins, but he'll be with us at some point tonight. We got a good slate for you guys. Obviously, the Bills made a couple moves this week. As Brandon Beane continues to tell us he doesn't have any money, and we continue to find money somehow. He must be a leprechaun that left over for St. Patrick's Day, because he keeps finding this pot of gold and money or wherever he's finding it at. But the Bills were able to retain Brian Bates as match, surprisingly, and I say surprisingly because we're going to get into that, surprisingly matching the Bear offer from the Chicago Bears. They also were able to bring in Jamison Crowder, who I think made me feel a little bit more comfortable at that number 3 receiver spot. A guy who we're gonna ask the question, like, is this an upgrade possibly over Cole Beasley? I don't think it's out of the question. Don't say not necessarily saying that it is, but not necessarily out of the question as well. They also, obviously, the huge stadium deal that just went down, $1.4 billion stadium was being built in Buffalo, in Orchard Park, across the street from the old stadium, I believe. And we're going to talk about how that money was broken down and how people feel, because I know a lot of people wanted that stadium downtown Buffalo. Personally, I don't think it was feasible, and I'll tell you why I don't think it was feasible, talking to the great Pat Freeman, the mighty Oba himself. And yeah, and we may not get into this Laviska Shenault thing, because I'm kind of on this Laviska Shenault train, that the Bills could possibly make a move for him for a cheap contract, but we may or may not get to that tonight. But first things first, James, let's hop right into it. I actually want to jump right into this stadium deal. Oh yeah, by the way, we're also going to be talking about number 2 cornerback spot tonight, because obviously with Tyreke Hill going to Miami, I think this becomes a bigger question, even with the Ryan Bates resigning. I know a lot of people have been asking for that conversation, so tonight is the night that we have that, and it probably won't be the last time that we have the conversation before the NFL draft, as it's a big issue. But let's get right into the stadium deal. Obviously, the Bills announced this week that the Bills, New York State, and Erie County reached an ironclad agreement, which they finalized today, I believe, 30-year deal to build a $1.4 billion stadium in Orchard Park. That's per Jason Wolf. The state is eating $600 million of the cost. Erie County, $250 million. The Pagulas is $350 million plus the $200 million loan they just got for NFL. And Jeremy White from WGR is reporting that 50,000 personal seat licenses are going to be sold, starting at $1,000 a piece. So, it's just, what did you think about the stadium deal? Obviously, these are numbers that we've had for months. Numbers really haven't changed in the last year, just about finalizing everything. What did you think about the deal, James?
I was happy that we got it done. The Bills will be here for, a long time. And I'm excited about that. In regards to breaking down the numbers and how it go, the logistics and all that, I'm not too great with that. I'm just happy that we are going to have the Bills here, and that we are getting a new stadium. I mean, let's be real here. We overdue. Yeah. OJ Simpson played in the stadium. So my goodness. We do. So I'm excited, man. I'm really excited that we getting that stadium, and I'm a little disappointed. I think it would have been better downtown. Yeah. But it is what it is. We got a new stadium, and that's what matters most.
No, and I have the same sentiment, even though I do no longer reside in Buffalo. I do reside in Connecticut, Patriot country. I did want the stadium downtown Buffalo, but understanding the Pagulas did do their research and their background check on the stadium downtown, it was not feasible, and I think it wasn't feasible mainly because of the timeline. If the Bills were going to do the stadium downtown Buffalo, it would have had to have been started, honestly, probably right when the Pagulas took over, and honestly, probably before that, because there had to be a lot of infrastructure things done to get that stadium in downtown Buffalo. And like I said, I know in the future we're going to have the mighty Oba, now that the deal's done, Pat Freeman on the show, and he can give us a breakdown of everything of what happened and why it did not go downtown and things like that. But really, in reality, long story short, the stadium would have had to been started for downtown years ago. And the NFL is not giving the Buffalo Bills or the Pagulas that much time to get this stadium and get everything in gear. They've been telling the Bills they want a new stadium since the remodel back, I think, like 2004. So it's been quite a while now. So I'm not surprised, but like I said, overall, I'm happy to get it done. They also announced that the developers developed, I think, the Tottenham Stadium out in England, and so there's going to be a lot of similarities to the new stadium to that one over there. And one thing I do ask for, even though it's going to be an open air stadium, and you guys know if you've been watching and follow me, I'm a dome guy. I'm a big dome guy. I'm a firm believer in putting a Ferrari in the garage in the wintertime, and that's how I feel about Josh Allen. But it's okay. I hope they have the canopies over. So, I mean, I know people love the elements of blood playing outside, but the canopies over so fans who don't like to go shirtless and be below zero weather can have some coverage from the snow. Because, like I said, the last snow game I went to was that Colts game. Any thoughts on that?
Didn't they say that they were going to have it like that? I think they said like 50,000 of the seats would be covered. Like about 50,000 on it. Am I correct? Is that a report I heard, or am I hearing wrong?
That's what I heard. I mean, I heard that it was going to be 62,000. There may be a canopy. I don't know when the canopy yet. That hasn't been confirmed, but it is going to have a heating system underneath the grass field because it is going to be grass field this time, and the heating system will be similar to Green Bay, so that'll help for the winter. And yeah, I know someone's asking if the new stadium's gonna be up. Thanks, Fonzo Edwards. He said that the new stadium's gonna get blown up once the other stadium's up. So I think that also is gonna ensure that the Bills are gonna be playing in Highmark Stadium until this one is completed. Because last year, remember, there was rumors that they may be possibly playing in Penn State or UB or somewhere outside of Buffalo. I don't think that's gonna happen. So that's good. But either way, new stadium's coming up. We don't have to worry about this. This is no longer a conversation. You have the Bills for the next 30 years. And voila, the issues created possibly by the Ralph Wilson era are kind of going to be something of the past. It's a safety net. So everybody breathe easy. But moving on, like I said, we'll get more into that later this week. I'm going to have Mighty Obo on, and he can explain everything about the stadium. Because if there's one guy that knows everything about the stadium, it's Pat Freeman. But moving on, the Bills made a big move this week, and I think it was a shocking move to myself and a shocking move to a lot of Bills Mafia, as once we heard the reports that the Bears were going to offer Ryan Bates, he was taking his visits, and that they were going to front load a contract because they know that the Bills were kind of in salary cap in struggles right now currently. I got that real Chris Hogan-ish feeling. Now, if you guys remember a couple years back, when Chris Hogan was a free agent with Buffalo, I think the Bills went to free. When it was time to resign, I think the Bills had like $2.5 million in space at the time. In New England, and Bill Belichick in New England gave him a deal that I think the first year was like $4.5 million or something that Buffalo could. They front loaded where they couldn't match it. So I got this real Chris Hogan-ish feeling.
Remember we did that with Miami with Charles Clay.
We did do that with Charles Clay. Yep, you're right.
With him. Yep.
So they couldn't re-sign him. I totally forgot the Charles Clay thing. The divisional games, right? But so the Bills were able to retain Ryan Bates, and I thought this was a pretty big move because I think that this affected the draft board tremendously. They'll end up being, I believe, 4 years, $17 million. I believe $8.8 million is going to be paid over the first 2 years of the deal, or it's going to be guaranteed, something like that. It's going to be that close. But what do you think about retaining Ryan Bates? Do you think this takes guard completely out the picture in the first round of the draft? And do you think that this completely sets up the O-line period now?
I like it. I was kind of against it when I kind of sat back and looked at it. It really puts the Bills in a position where you don't have to draft for need. We would have to take a guard early for need. We needed a guard. Now, when you bring Bates back, I mean, grant him that opportunity to come in there and compete for a certain job. I don't think it should be handed to him. He played well in the games that he did start, but I don't think he has done enough yet to be like, okay, we're going to give him the job. So I do love the fact that we can now really draft we can draft best player available. And it may be a guard come in and compete with him, but one thing we do got with him is he's versatile. So even if for some crazy reason he doesn't start this year, you're paying for a sixth man, so to say, that can play anywhere on the offensive line, and that's very, very valuable. Plus, people, one thing kind of take for granted is that dude could play all over the line. But right now, I would say he's going to be our right guard. Who knows? But I like the signing.
Yeah. So for me, it gave me a little bit of clarity on the draft board because, like I said, I'm a proponent that first round it has to be receiver or cornerback. I'm stuck on this, and I'm not moving from it. It has to be receiver or cornerback, and we're gonna talk about that a little bit more too. Because I know you have some thoughts on the Bills adding weapons across the field, both sides of the ball. The deal that we gave Ryan Bates, it's technically what is like about $5 million, almost about a little over $5 million per year. Technically, when you break it down over 4, it's that money that we were looking for Darrell Williams to actually take if we were looking for a pay cut. So to me, it's starting guard money. It's starting right guard money. It's a fair deal. It's a good deal. I think with the signing of Roger Saffold, you're going to say, okay, who's our weak link on the offensive line? If you're going to tell me right now that Ryan Bates is the Bills' weak link, I'm okay with that because honestly, Ryan Bates was also the same guy who came in last year, and it seemed like everything changed. So I had Mud Dog dig me up some stats for Ryan Bates, so we could just get a picture on what the impact was that he had when he came in. So Ryan Bates starting, this is not including the playoff games. This is the 3 games that he started towards the end of the season. Pre Ryan Bates starting, Devin Singletary only had 3 rushing touchdowns. The Bills were averaging 120 yards on the ground, and Josh Allen was sacked 26 times. And Devin Singletary had not one 100-yard game. In the 3 games in this season that Ryan Bates started, the Bills rushed for 172 yards per game. Josh Allen was not sacked, and Devin Singletary had his first 100-yard game of the season while rushing for 4 touchdowns in those 3 games. So there was definitely an impact. Yeah. Mind you, I ain't saying he's Richie Incognito of 2017. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you can definitely see the impact.
He can play. Yeah, that's what it says. But this is where the politics kind of comes into play, where Feliciano was going to get an opportunity ahead of him. Cody Ford was going to get an opportunity ahead of him. Those guys were, Ike Buttinger or whatever. He had his opportunity.
We resigned Ike too. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to be out of there. A rookie going to beat him out. He's out of there. But it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, he can ball. I mean, he showed that he can play and that he deserves an opportunity to be the starting right guard. I think they're going to bring in they're going to draft a guard in the first 3 rounds, and they're going to let them compete, and the best man will play.
What do you think about? So do you think that Cody Ford plays any part in this at all? Do you think he's trade bait? Do you think Chrome may like him, or do you think that he's going to have a fair shot in camp? I don't know, man. I don't think he's gonna. I don't think Ike Bottiger. I don't think they're gonna put Ryan Bates in competition, but they may put Ike Bottiger and Cody Ford in competition for that backup spot with the rookie possibly as well.
I think they'll have an open competition for the right guard spot. It'll be an open competition, in my opinion. I think they will make it an open competition. Obviously, Bates has inside track. I mean, that's obvious. But Cody Ford, I can't count him out, man. A lot of people I see somebody saying, he's trash. I mean, you can't say he's trash. He just hasn't played up to, his expectations. You can't sit here and say he's trash, man. I mean, he has some difficult times, absolutely. But he's also had some pretty solid times as well.
Yes, actually. He really has.
In my opinion, he can play a little bit. Is he a starter and an all-pro? No, obviously not. Or we'll be having this conversation. I think he's a solid football player. I think a change of scenery, is needed. Sometimes, and with this new offensive line coach, who knows? The same dude that just was talking to Jeremy, I forgot I'm sorry, his last name just went by. We may be having a different conversation with a line coach. I can tell you from playing at a high level, that your coach and your system, your scheme, it matters. It matters. If you get a power runner and you put him in his own scheme, he's not going to look as great. If you put a zone running back into a power scheme, it's going to be different. It's going to be a noticeable difference. Let's look back. I know I'm a little off topic, but look back at the Denver Broncos running backs in the early 2000s. Those dudes was ripping off yards because they got dudes that fit that scheme. But those dudes went to other places and they didn't have as much success. Why? Because the scheme. You got to find some, that's your skill set, and that scheme is everything. And that could be a situation with Cody Ford.
Well, I mean, look, we have to see too with the departure of Bobby Johnson, obviously the signing of Aaron Cromer, and obviously Sean McDermott called the Aaron Cromer hire a huge hire. So obviously the Bills paid him a little bit of money. I don't know what his contract was, but by those statements, they paid him a little money to come here. Do I think Cody Ford is a starter? I don't think he is, and I'm still thinking that he can be a starter in the NFL, just not here in Buffalo. And I do agree that a change of scenery is best for him. Period. Even if he comes in and he looks good in camp, I think a change of scenery is best for him. I think that he's either too complacent here in Buffalo or his confidence is shot, and hell, it could be both. But sometimes he needs a wake-up call. He wasn't a second-round pick for no reason. And this is what I keep saying about people who say he's just awful. Personally, I'm not a fan of Cody Ford. I don't think he's ever going to be a great NFL lineman, but I think he could be a starter at your number 2 guard spot, right? Like I said, if your left guard's your star player, he could be your right guard. If your right guard's your star player, he could be your left guard. It's as cheap talent as they call it. The Bills weren't the only team that had him high on their draft board. So that means to me that there's other GMs who still may value him. Now, I know in Buffalo, and Muki Hawkins is in the building, there's other players in that draft, obviously, when we talk about DK Metcalf and things as such, that makes the Cody Ford thing look worse. But I do think he does have some trade value. I do believe that I would love to welcome a Cody Ford for Laviska Shenault trade. I think the Jaguars need a right guard, and for some reason they're just looking to just get rid of Shenault, not even give him a shot, which reminds me of a whole lot of Cordero Patterson, a younger Cordero Patterson, but that's neither here or there. But Mook, what's up, man? We talk about fill you in. We talk about Ryan Bates signing. If it's solidified the offensive line, is he penciled in at that contract for 4 years for $17 million as your right guard? And does it change the draft board just a little bit?
It pinpoints the draft board. I can say that. I mean, when you really look at it, the glaring eyesore now that's left for the Bills to try to, plug a leak in is obviously cornerback. But necessarily, do the Bills look at getting a cornerback at 25? I mean, you still can look other places. You know what I mean? Right now, 25 is just the best player available to me in their eyes. Now, obviously, yeah, it is cornerback. You need more than one corner. But, a guy like Breece Hall is there. Do you put a trigger on Breece Hall? Do you put a trigger on another dynamic receiver that can blow the top off the defense that you're still looking for in a Jamison Williams type of guy? Or, I mean, to answer your question, though, I think it kind of solidifies who the starters are. I mean, when you look at, the Bills matching that offer at 4 years, $17 million, with 8.8 of it being guaranteed over the next 2 years, of course, that pretty much seals the deal on who your right guard is going to be next to Spencer Brown. We already know Mitch Morris isn't going anywhere. We already know that Roger Saffold is your guy at left guard. And then obviously you have another Pro Bowler in Deion Dawkins, who's your anchor over there. So this definitely solidifies the Bills' starters up front. So anything else is pretty much a quality depth piece. And that's what Brandon Beane is looking for. Thus far, they signed Ike Boddicker. So now he's that bridge guy. He's that swing guard. Whenever he's healthy, he probably won't be available probably till mid-season dealing with that Achilles. So, the Bills are definitely going to address quality depth pieces and, once again, best available player at 25. If not, they feel the need to make a big splash in the draft to move up to go and get their guy per se.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you said when they matched the deal, I was happy to see it because, like I said, I tell you the truth, before the Ryan Bates match, I actually had the Bills going guard. The further that contract match went along, and it didn't seem like they were going to match it. And obviously they're going to have to restructure a little bit to get back under the cap. I thought that I really did think that the Bills were going to go guard at pick 25. I thought a guy like Kenyon Green would be on the board, and they'd be able to take someone like him because I mean I do.
Green from Texas A&M?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Well, you don't think he'll be on the board, or you don't think he'll be there?
He'll be on the board, but I still wouldn't take him.
Not 25?
Green did at the combine.
Yeah, I know what he did.
You know what he did?
Yeah. What did he do?
He couldn't beat the dummy. He couldn't beat the dummy at the combine. He couldn't beat the dummy, bro. He kept falling. They told him to get out of line.
Yes, the guy was falling over the thing, right?
Yeah. I'm not taking him. You can't beat a dummy not once but twice. They tell you to get out of line.
He may have been there. Well, Chris Jones fell in his old junk fell out, man. And look at him 27 years later. He's fine.
Man, you can't beat the dummy. The dummy just standing there. You can't punch the dummy. No, so you ain't gonna be able to block Aaron Donald if need be in the Super Bowl setting. Obviously, you see what happened in the Super Bowl. Quinn Spain ain't gonna block him neither.
Neither Quinn Spain running.
Nobody in the NFL could block him. He's the best D tackle ever, so we can never use him as an example.
I'm just saying, if you lose it to a dummy, bro, like if you lose it to a dummy, I'm not gonna invest my top 25 pick in that. I can wait. You know, maybe that's why the Bills matched the offer.
Yeah, you may be right. You may be right.
Johnson before I go Green.
Well, I didn't think Zion Johnson was going to be on the board. I'm going to be honest. I had Zion Johnson higher than Green. I had Green as number 2. Right. And then if they couldn't get number 2, I had him at Lacecia Smith later on. You know what I mean? Like third round.
I got Lacecia Smith on my mock drafts, like somewhere between 4th and 5th round. But everybody at the combine was talking about that. So all of us as media is talking about that. I'm quite sure that the GMs and scouts is talking about that as well. Yeah. So I look at that guy at 25, but when you look at a guy like Ryan Bates and look what his overall production was in a short period of time and the snaps that he did get, he was able to produce over a 90% pass blocking grade and over a 60% run blocking grade. So at right guard, that's great numbers to be a right guard. You know what I mean? So, hey, you go ahead and spend that money. He has the familiarity with the system. So now you got pretty much your offensive line set, and then you just build those quality depth pieces as you go. Not saying that the Bills were still looking to free agency to grab some more pieces, because there's going to be a lot of leftover pieces in free agency that's going to sign a vet minimum to want to be a part of something special that the Bills got going on.
Totally right. But I think we can all agree it was a good match. It was a good deal. Thank you for Chicago for giving him a fair deal that we can match. So we thank you for handling the negotiations for us, doing Brandon Beane's work. He's been really busy over here building a Super Bowl contender. And as you guys continue to work in Chicago, and I got faith in you, Ryan Poles, he's from the New York area. As you continue to work to get this thing in order, we appreciate your negotiating for us and getting us a fair price. And adieu. So moving on. Moving on, the Bills made another big move this week, which is another example of Brandon Beane going after a guy that he once wanted before and landing him, this time in the order of receiver Jamison Crowder. Now, obviously, we've seen Jamison Crowder over 2 times over the last 3 seasons that he's played with the New York Jets. He's obviously going to be your number 3 receiver going into this season, unless Isaiah McKenzie can beat him out. I've been saying for 2 weeks since McKenzie was signed, they had to bring another receiver in. I didn't care if it was the first round, I didn't care if it was the second round, I didn't care if it was a veteran. I'm not going into the season, and this is no disrespect to Isaiah McKenzie. I am not going into the season with him penciled in at number 3. If he wins it, he wins it. But I was never comfortable with doing that. I've been vocal about it, and I'm not saying he can't. But Jamison Crowder put me at ease a little bit. And once again, he plays in the same mode as Cole Beasley. Jamison Crowder, what do you got on him, man?
I love it. I love the move. I feel so comfortable with our slot position now. It's not even funny. Yeah, I know how I feel about Isaiah. I think he's a good football player. I'm cool with having him on our team. I don't trust him. Him. Good for having games where he will have them. He's gonna have a couple of games this year. He's gonna go for over 100 yards. Isaiah McKenzie, he is. It's just what it is. He's talented. He's not consistent enough for me. But now, man, signing Crowder. Let's not forget, he lit our ass up a couple games. Like he went to work on the Bills a couple times, man, with the Jets. Crowder can ball, and I think he's an upgrade as we speak right now. He's definitely an upgrade over Cole Beasley, and the reason being, one thing that hurt us was yards after the catch. One thing he's going to be able to do is he's going to be able to get boogie. He's going to get the ball in his hands. He's going to be able to make a couple things happen. And I think people are really, really, really underestimating this signing. if people think about what Cole has done for us over his time in Buffalo, and he's been tremendous. Dude, he's helped, obviously, he's helped Josh Allen development. He's been, dude, phenomenal, Cole Beasley was. But right now, take your emotions out of it. Crowder's a better football player right now, and I think we win. We got to upgrade for sure.
Muki Hawkins, Jamison Crowder. You actually had to talk to Jamison, right?
Yeah, I talked to Jamison. Excuse me for eating, because guess what? It's nothing, not personal. It's just business. But this is a good show, man. You got to enjoy it with some good nachos. Man, you know what I mean? So, with that being said, Jamison Crowder was an excellent pick.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it really kind of came out of nowhere. Everybody was still high on Jarvis Landry. I was too. But because you look at his market value was $12 million. So you looking like, okay, is it a possibility? At this point in time, when you're playing for the Jets and you show out for the Jets to the point where your market value is at $12 million playing for the Jets, you want that market value. You know what I mean? But I had to ask him the question. I didn't put it out there to him. He obviously know what his market value is. But we talked about this on this show plenty of times. Like, what veteran is going to sacrifice the bag in order to complete and contend for a championship? And Jamison Crowder was one of those guys. Obviously, we signed Jamison Crowder for $2.5 million with incentives up to $4 million for 1 year.
Deal.
Yeah.
All right, we was paying Cole Beasley $6 million, so we still got $2 million out that deal. That's that we could use to sign somebody else. But to get a guy like Jamison Crowder for $2.5 million, oh, I love that right there. I'm loving that all the way.
And we got younger.
Right.
That's understandable.
Stronger and faster.
What, Beasley was going to be 33 this year?
At a cheaper price.
So we got 5 years. We went 5 years younger.
Yes,
a guy who's building the same mold. And I found it interesting in Crowder's interview with the Bills the other day that he said that Brandon Beane went after him before. So Jamison Crowder, the year that Cole Beasley and John Brown were signed, Jamison Crowder was Beane's number one slot option. It wasn't Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley was the fallback option. Mm-hmm. And actually, James, if I remember correctly, I don't know if Cole Beasley was number two option. I think it was Jamison Crowder, and then what you heard before was Adam Humphries was actually number two on the list at that time. Mm-hmm. Cole Beasley was number three, so Beane gets to come back a couple years later and gets his guy, and obviously you can hear the excitement in Crowder's voice. I mean, God knows the guys played with Mike White, Sam Darnold, Joe Flacco over there in New York. I think he's just excited just to get with somebody who can throw the ball to him on a consistent basis. But to come in this offense with Stephon Diggs, to be able to work with Gabe Davis, to have Dawson Knox, to have O.J. Howard here, now you have a Ryan Bates to solidify the offensive line. Devin Singletary already working. He's excited, and he's looking to win a championship. And like you said, Mookie, you always call Beane Beane the burglar.
Still. Straight stealing. You know how my man Andre say the Jets just end the season, man. That's what the Jets mean. And Jamison Crowder was just trying to get the season over with so he can go and play with a contender team. And obviously, I mean, people want to come play with Josh Allen, man. He's a dog out there. And, that's all it takes. If you got a great defense, you got a dog-ass quarterback, receivers love that, so they want to go play with that. I mean, look at the quarterbacks who he has been throwing him the ball in his career.
Kirk Cousins only got one.
And Josh Allen get on this Super Bowl run and then get your bag at a later date.
Yeah. I mean, he fits well. James, what do you think about Crowder's excitement? Like, what do you, if you can give me just off the top of your head, maybe what do you think his number is going to look like possibly next year? Fully healthy, assuming.
I'm the fully healthy 17-game season. I'm going for 8. I'm saying 806 touchdowns. I mean, easy. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking about, they're going to spread the ball out. I'm assuming they're going to draft a receiver high, and that receiver is going to touch the ball. So that's going to take away from, his production a little bit. But I think he's going to go to work. Like, people are going to fall in love with him, and they're going to, listen, they're going to see where Cole Beasley fell off at, because this dude is about to put work in, like major work. I don't think people understand it. I just want to throw this out there. What about Isaiah McKenzie? I don't know if he's a lock to make the roster, man. I don't know if he's a lock to make the roster. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on the roster week one. I'm telling y'all that now, man. The man, listen, especially if they draft somebody high, and I would not rule out Emmanuel Sanders signing back either if he don't retire. I'm telling y'all now. Remember I said it. Book it. Isaiah McKenzie is not a lock to make this roster.
Well, not at that cheap ass contract they got him at. He
And
ain't give himself no.
if somebody come in there and return punts and kicks better than him, I'm telling you right now, it's a possibility he might be gone.
Is Andre Roberts under contract, or is he a free agent right now?
He should be probably a free agent.
He's a free agent, so they may entertain bringing him back because he was so sure-handed with the ball. He didn't make any mistakes. He did put the team in good field position. But McKenzie give you another dynamic piece where he can really take it to the house, but he has to control the football. That's his only knock in special teams, ball security. And we all know how Coach McDermott is with that damn ball security. With your offense being explosive as it is, we do not need special teams turning off the football.
You need somebody to catch the ball back there, Muki. You know it. And you can look at McKenzie. He's not a natural returner. He's not comfortable catching the ball. Muki, you coach football how long? He just don't look comfortable catching punts. It's just not it.
He's just not making good decisions. And a guy like Andre Roberts made great decisions with the football, whether he fielded it as a fair catch or he let it bounce or he caught it and got to them, put the team in the best field position that he can possibly. He just made more mental decisions. And that's what you need out of your punt returner or a kick returner when fielding the punt, because they set the tone for the game. You know what I mean? And, it is that maturity. Look how old Andre Roberts is. He don't have the necessary speed that he once had, but he never put the team in a bad position. And that was the thing that made him a Pro Bowler here out of Buffalo. And that would make him, force other teams to pay him a little bit more than what we were paying him, to the point where he had to leave here. I'm quite sure that he didn't want to leave neither. So, I mean, it might happen. It might not happen. He might be able to run it back at a lesser price and create that competition. The Bills is all about having a competitive roster. So, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. You got Speedy Stevenson in his second year, right, what he brings to the table. So we'll see about that.
The thing is too, you can't, like I say, can't count out Stevenson. And also, if the Bills are going to show any type of, how do I want to say this, struggles on punt return and kick returns, it's like the pieces of ball security, he's just going to go get a veteran at that point in time. If they have to trade a future draft pick, that's going to go get a veteran to return the ball. And not for nothing, not saying that Jamison Crowder will return punts, but Jamison Crowder is an experienced punt returner, and he's a sure hand guy. If they're willing to put Micah Hyde back there, I would not be surprised if they're willing to put Jamison Crowder and say, hey, make the right decision, at least get us at least 7 yards if you can, if it's a return, and we'll let Josh take the offense. Not saying they'll do that, but that's why I also say you got to look at the draft board and you start looking at guys like Calvin Austin, the third or junior, whatever. I think Calvin Austin from Memphis, the third mid rounds. You have to start looking at a guy like Chris Olave, who may be on the Bills draft board in the first round. These guys who can return kicks and punts, but also contribute in the receiving game. Let's be honest, Andre Roberts didn't lose his roster spot because he was no longer a good returner. He lost his roster spot because we have too good of a roster to have somebody at the point in time to contribute to only punt return and kick returns.
The thing was, it was money. Because he
didn't lose his spot, right? Like, the Texans paid him a bag to leave.
Yeah,
they
paid him what, $4 or $5 million.
Like, I think he got paid like $4 million or something like that. $3 to $4 million. But Bills was only paying the man like $1.5. Remember, they cut Andre Roberts.
Well, they cut him and then they gave him a new deal, right?
I mean, for that reason. So you got to go with the money he had. I don't blame him, but the grass isn't green on the other side at all times. So.
Well, he got a lot of punt returns on last year. Kick returns.
Special teams will lose you games quick. And the Bills, I just don't see them rolling the dice with a rookie. It's going to be a veteran back there returning punts and kicks. They're not rolling the dice. I just don't see them rolling it because that can cost them a game. I don't see them saying, okay, we drafted this dude in the first round. He's going to be our he's going to return kicks and punts. Crowder or Hyde, dude, that's like an emergency plan if you got to do that. Like, that's like, that's bad. You got an all-pro safety back there return. Dude, that's bad. So, best believe that will be addressed. One position, it will be a returner that will be dressing every single week. And it's not going to be somebody that contributes on offense or defense. That's going to be their role. And we see how important it was. We had Andre Roberts last year. at least one more. We win at least one more regular season game because special teams hurt us a lot more than people give it credit for.
No, I'm not against that at all. That's another reason it brings me to and actually before we head off, I do want to make sure that everybody is liking, retweeting, sharing, subscribing, whatever platform you're watching on, because this is live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at the same time. But I do think that you do need to find a guy that's going to return punts that can also contribute on offense or defense. I don't think we can just find a guy with this roster that we're building, because I mean, let's be honest. James, you said it before. When you start drafting in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, a lot of times those guys don't make the roster anymore on good teams like this because it's just too many good players already there. You know what I mean?
The reason why I think you gotta designate certain, the 46 that dress on game day. Taiwan Jones gonna make the team. Tyler Medikevich gonna make the team. Vic Kumaro, I'm up in the air with him. Those guys are going to make the team because special teams will lose you games. It don't matter. You can score 30 points on offense. But if you have one block kick and if you have one botch punt in that game, you lose. You know the percentage of teams that lose games if you have one block kick? 96% of the times if you have a block kick, you lose the game. So that's something that, dude, you got to have them dudes to do that. Like, otherwise, Crowder, what he doing, the work he putting in won't even matter if you got dudes giving up possessions on special teams or they getting great field position running it back. That's why Taiwan Jones there. That's why Saran Neal just got paid. I mean, these are things that people just overlook. That's one of the 3 elements of the game, like 3 phases of the game. You got to be able to have dudes that's just dogs on special teams. And last year, especially when I watched the game, my brother, who's one of the top kick returners in college football, dude, it's disgusting watching the Bills return game. It's putrid, and they have to address it.
I think they will. Like I said, I think they've addressed everything else. I have no reason to believe that they won't address that as well at some point, and we'll see what they come up with a plan. But I think that moving on from the Jamison Crowder, I think we all believe that this was the right move. It's a great fit, as Muki calls it. It's a steal. And I think he's going to produce in his all. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. Obviously, he battled injuries last year a little bit. I think this is definitely a bounce back year for Jamison Crowder within this offense. And I think it's going to be easy for him, and he's going to make life a lot easier on Josh Allen. Like I said before, nothing against Cole Beasley, but you needed a guy that on 3rd and 7, you can give it to him at 4 yards, 5 yards, and they can get you to get past the sticks. You saw that in that Patriot rematch with Isaiah McKenzie for the 10 for 125. That was the biggest difference between McKenzie and Beasley. It was the fact that you had a guy that could catch the ball at 5 and get you 10. And at this point in Beasley's career, he really wasn't doing that anymore. Let's just be honest about it. Unless it was a seam route and nobody was on him.
Yeah, he never was that guy. He gonna route you up, get you some nice yards. But hey, love Cole Beasley, but we definitely got to upgrade. Sorry, I went a little bit off topic, but yeah, we got to upgrade there.
Right. But moving on, it brings me to the question of before, because our last topic we're going to talk about the cornerback situation. There is a guy who's available who I think actually fits a lot of. Were there many holes on offense? I call it. I think this player could play a little bit of running back. He can play slot. He can play outside. He can kick return. He can punt return. And it's actually a player that the Bills are pretty high on coming out the draft. The Jaguars have obviously openly shopping 3rd-year receiver Laviska Shenault. Now Shenault is a guy like a Cordero Patterson type of mode to me. He doesn't really have a one defined position. He's a jack of all things. He's not going to be the greatest. Yes, he can. Yeah, no, he has a lot of return experience in college.
I know. I'm laughing. I'm joking around with you.
No, so that's this because of the return game. This is one of the names that I bring up, and I've been saying for a while now. I believe that a Cody Ford swap for Laviska Shenault would be great for both players. And you put Laviska in this offense where he can actually develop and out of the whatever that they got going on in Jacksonville. Mook, I'm gonna come to you first. Laviska Shenault, this is the player that the Bills were high on a couple years ago. He has a very low contract. Is this guy that the Bills could possibly be interested in bringing in?
I don't know, because he's still on his rookie deal, and he come to Buffalo and put up good numbers. Then, he's going to warrant, top dollar for that. So I don't think that's something that the Bills will entertain at this point, because we already know what the receiver market is looking like right now for a going receiver. We got to deal with that with Stephon Diggs. So to bring in a guy like Laviska Shenault and, only have him for a year, because he wasn't a first round pick. He was a second round pick. So you can't exercise a 5-year option. So this will be his last and final year on his rookie deal.
This is his third year, right? This is his third year. He's gonna have one more year remaining after this season.
He'll have one more year remaining, but he's still gonna have to fork up some cash if he's just, putting up those type of numbers. So I don't know if the Bills want to exercise that, and then what can he do as far as a receiver that all the other receivers can't do right now? He's not a speed burner that can blow the top off the defense. Right now the Bills need a guy that could blow the top off the defense. Laviska Shenault is not that type of guy. Like you said, he is a Cordero Patterson, Swiss Army knife type of dude, but I don't think the Bills are in position of having a guy like that on their roster, and then 2 years you're gonna have to pay him top dollar, something that the Bills obviously ain't gonna be able to afford. So I don't see the Bills bringing in Laviska Shenault, on that reason alone. You know what I mean?
James, you're high on Cordero Patterson. Laviska Shenault, swap?
I'll be for it. Now, what I think will happen with this is I think this will happen maybe day 2 or day 3 of the draft. After you see how the chips fall, what may happen. I will see this happen something during the draft where the Bills may miss out on something like, all right, we'll give you a pick and Cody Ford for this swap. I could see that, but I would be for it. I'm all for loading this team up with weapons, so I'm all for it.
So, I mean, I've high Laviska Shenault coming out. I wasn't high as some people. Some people were campaigning for him to be a top 10 pick, which I was not for that. At this point, I wouldn't mind bringing him in. As you've been saying before, load this team with as many weapons around Josh Allen as you can. Hell, if you bring him in and you swap Cody for a guy that maybe you're going to trade anyway, or you swap a 5th-round pick, something that you're possibly going to take a receiver at that pick in general, for a guy who's been in the league for 2 years, then I do it. We've brought people in like TJ Yeldon, Matt Breida, who we've paid a decent amount, more than we're going to have to pay Laviska Shenault, that have done a lot less, and we didn't even suit up. So hell, if it gets to that point, what are we losing? We've been doing that already for the past 2 years, regardless, right? We've already done this. We've been on this road. I think that he's a guy that, as we saw injuries happen on receiving core, not this year, but the past year, the year we lost to Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, you can never have too many receivers. You can never have too many players. If a Zach Moss got injured, if a Devin Singletary got injured, this is a guy who can take tosses out the backfield. He can play in the backfield. If a receiver goes down, this is a guy, like I said, he can play X, Y, or Z receiver spots. It's not a question. This is a guy who can kick return. He can punt return. Yeah,
what's the size?
Laviska's about 6'2", 210.
Oh, he is about okay.
Yeah, so he's a bigger guy. He doesn't necessarily play to his size per se, but it's a guy that I could see that be a good culture fit, a good gadget player, a good, like as my man Leroy said, a good Swiss Army knife to have. Because I think that we've been kind of looking for that. But like I said, at a cheap price. Do I think it's going to happen? No, because I think if Laviska's camp is going to have a trade partner, he's going to try to get somewhere where he's going to play more. Obviously, if he got traded to Buffalo right now, yeah, honestly, he's competing with Isaiah McKenzie right immediately and gets it for the 4th receiver spot. That's what happens. So I would be all for it. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the Bills are going to entertain it. Hell, I don't know if the Jags are actually going to come up off him and actually trade him either. So this is just a thought. I just wanted to get that the thought on Laviska Shenault since his name was out there, and he's not a bad football player. He's a good football player. I think he's going to catch on somewhere and actually be a lot better player than where he is right now. But we'll see what happens. But moving on to the last topic of the night, the topic that everybody's been on. Everybody's been tweeting about it now that Ryan Bates is back. Everybody's been talking about it. The number 2 cornerback spot. Is it an issue? And what are the Bills going to do? So if you've been watching recently, obviously you know that the Miami Dolphins this week traded for Chiefs All-Pro receiver Tyreke Hill. It sent the Twitter world on fire. They paired him with Jalen Waddle and Cedric Wilson, who they just signed. Obviously, we know what Tyreke has done to us. There's no reason to rehash that or bring that up anymore. We know what he's done to Buffalo. Brandon Beane said today that I don't, and quote unquote, we don't wake up thinking about who's at the number 2 cornerback spot. And I believe he uttered something, or maybe Sean McDermott uttered that said the Trey White's in the building rehabbing, and he's doing fine. Personally, I think that's the smoke screen. At this point, I hope it's a smoke screen. It better be a smoke screen because you got to do something with this spot. I know some people are high on Dane Jackson, but as Muki alluded to a long time ago with Levi Wallace, Dane Jackson's also a 4.5 guy, closer to 4.6. You need some athleticism, you need some speed, and obviously we know that we don't know where Trey White is actually at in his rehab because the Bills has not released that information technically. They're just saying he's on track. He got towards ACL November. We don't really know what on track is. If it's week 1, if it's week 6, is week 8. We don't know what on track is. The Bills are, they have they're not talking about it, not telling us anything. Moot, number 2 quarterback spot, is it an issue, and is it a bigger issue now that Tyreke Hill's in Miami?
Number 2 quarterback with us is really not an issue. When you draft for a guy, obviously he's going to be that number 2 guy. I didn't mind us getting a guy like Case Keenum for a 7th round pick. I mean, basically that's the Bills' 246 pick. So that's pretty much the last pick in the draft to get a guy like Case Keenum, who's a savvy veteran, knows coverages, and he's a little mobile in the pocket, so he doesn't hurt you from a standpoint. If Josh Allen, knock on wood, so happens to miss a few games, this guy can definitely keep you above 500 until Josh, regain healthy, can get back healthy in that regard. So I don't mind that pick. I still feel that the Bills will still maybe draft a guy, develop him in the next couple of years, and so they won't have to risk draft picks and bringing in veteran guys to back up your young stud quarterback. Tyreke Hill, I mean, damn, we went from trying to figure him out, in Kansas City. Now we got to deal with him twice a year, but it doesn't make me nervous, more or less, of him being in Kansas City than him being in Miami, because obviously the quarterback, you have to prove to me that you can do that in Miami. What you did in Kansas City is in Kansas City. Okay, now you're dealing with a whole nother quarterback. You got to develop continuity, familiarity, learn the playbook, learn your teammates. And then on the flip side of that, we have a defensive line now that's going to be running down quarterback. So quarterback is not going to have all day to sit back and throw the ball the way he wants. You won't be able to get the ball to Tyreke Hill when the quarterback is on the ground. So, hey, Tyreke Hill, bring your bad ass to Miami and be frustrated for the next every time you play the Bills. It's like they've been doing the past 3-4 years when you play Miami. Tyreke Hill is not any different. And then we're not going to have a guy like Levi Wallace that you could pick on and go at. When you need a big play, So we gonna have something for that this year, I believe.
Are there any veteran options? Is any particular player that's in the draft or that's available right now that you would like the Bills to kind of maybe target? Obviously, we don't have a lot of cap space, but every time Brandon Beane tells us we don't got cap space, we sign somebody else. So.
Right. He just using my good old EBT card that I can't find. I kind of figured out that he didn't took that joint.
Oh man,
he's using it pretty good. But I mean, there's been rumors about James Bradbury being available, and the Giants are willing to eat a portion of his salary cap. Now, if the Bills can make that happen in 1 year, I'm sure that the Bills won't mind pulling the trigger on that, due to the fact that Beane and McDermott drafted him in Carolina because, once again, he's familiar with the scheme. I'm quite sure he would love to come to the Bills, especially playing for the New York Giants. You got your bag there, but you wasn't competing for anything. So to go from that and, to come to a team that's basically competing for a Super Bowl, obviously, I'm quite sure that he would love to come here to Buffalo. With the familiarity that we have in the front office between the two, definitely can make that happen if need be. Maybe Stephon Gilmore might want to come here for a low contract for the sake of, getting another championship as well. There's another guy that's still on the market. Yeah. I'm not sure why he's not signed nowhere. I mean, there's been Raiders, there's been the Bengals, there's been the Ravens. Obviously, there's been New England. But, I'm not sure why he hasn't signed on to a team just yet. So if, you got Steve Nelson again, that's been, the Bills been coveting for a couple of years, but, he's been moved around to a few teams, haven't chosen the Bills, but all of a sudden, Bills is real attractive to a lot of people. So, they might want to take that veteran minimum to come be a part of that. If not, then, you got guys like Kier Elam, who I'm high on. He was my top guy right now on my mock draft 1.0. Derek Stingley could possibly slide to the Bills at
He
25.
is sliding, actually, yeah.
So those injury concerns that you have in that guy, but he is a scheme fit, come from out of LSU. I did ask Brandon Beane when we interviewed him last Friday about your analogy on Greedy Williams.
Oh, did you?
I got right up on him. I said, "Hey, man," because I forgot to ask him at the combine. So I called him before he walked into the presser, and I asked him. I was like, "Hey, man, you ever thought about bringing in Greedy Williams? I mean, Denzel Ward and they got Greg Newsome there. They're not going to resign this guy to any type of big money. You can bring him in and extending for a year for a low ball bargain type deal, and you have him for 2 years." And he was like, "Yeah, man, we just ain't got no money." I was like, "Man, get Trey on the phone." I was like, then he talked about about his back, so that let me know, like, if he knew all about that about Greedy Williams, about his back injury anyway, maybe he already entertained.
He did. He looked into it probably.
He looked into it already. You know what I'm saying? So that could be a possibility still. You know what I mean? Yeah. That definitely could be a possibility. JT, you was dead on with that. So I made sure I asked him what I got up on him, and I liked it when you said it. So I had to relay that same info to the general manager just to check his temperature on it. So I told him, I said, "Yo, have Tre'Davious Carley, man, to see where he at with that, because they're not going to re-sign him to any type of big money." You know what I mean?
No, because they got 2 corners over there now.
Right, you got 2 number ones. So
yeah,
when his contract is up, you're not about to sign him to any big money. You might lowball him in contract re-signing, but go ahead and make that trade for him right now. Let's get him out of Cleveland since y'all having that rummage sale.
Right, and as they say in Buffalo, come to Buffalo and be the best version of yourself, but also come to Buffalo and be the healthiest you ever been, because we can tab that as well. People don't talk about it, but come to Buffalo and be the best version of yourself, but also come to be the healthiest you've ever been, because we have the best training facility. And I don't know if you guys actually watched that before we move on to James. If you watched that video for Von Miller's first 24 hours of Buffalo, he was amazed by the facility and how it was set up. And yeah, it's the best facility in the NFL, and it's a big sticking point for free agents and people who come to Buffalo. And James, you've talked about it before, and shout out to the Pagulas for getting that done. $30 million, well invested.
Everybody is enamored when they walk into that training facility and see that. That's like, that's beyond a college facility, but it gives you that kind of feel when they walk up in there, like, damn, you know what I mean? Like, I ask all the rookies every year during the draft how they like that facility, you know what I mean? And they just like, man, I can't wait to sit down. Roger Saffold couldn't wait to get to start lifting weights in there, you know what I mean? And we have one of the best recovery programs in the National Football League. O.J. Howard went and said it himself. And when you got the players saying that goes throughout the league, you know what I mean? So, like you said, JTM, that's another recruiting tool. Guys knowing that you come to Buffalo, be the best version of yourself and become the best healthy version of yourself.
Exactly. But Darrell Williams is healthy right now in the free agency market, but he's healthy. I don't know, I don't know about some other players on the teams.
JT talking that talk, man.
James, number 2 cornerback spot. How did the Bills? On the level from scale of 1 to 10? How big of a problem is this for you?
I'll give it a 6.
Okay.
I think people are just overblowing it. Dane Jackson has played a lot. I mean, you have to do. He got some quality reps last year, but it's obvious they're gonna sign a veteran at some point, and they're going to draft one high. I mean, that's just obvious. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
right.
That's what I was saying. Like, you think they're gonna go into we're gonna draft one guy? No, all right, let's roll this group out. No, there's gonna be a veteran. I don't know, Patrick Peterson. I'm throwing a name out there. There's gonna be a veteran that's gonna take very little money. Is going to come here and ball out, have an opportunity to win a chip, and then go get paid. I mean, that's just what it is. There's not a lot of money left out there. So if you're waiting for a payday, it's not going to happen right now. Right. So you might as well go somewhere where you can make some money and you can play some football and play for something, right? So one thing I think we do need, we need dudes that can run. We're going to need some corners that can run. I love Dane Jackson. He don't play fast. He can play, but we need some dudes that can run, like overall team speed back there. And I think that's what they're going to look for, somebody that can really run. Obviously, they got to be a baller, but you got to look for somebody that can really, really run. But I think a veteran is going to start out that first round pick, whoever they draft, they're going to ease them along. It's going to be a little, next year he'll take over opposite of
Right.
Trey White. But that veteran is going to be the guy that's going to start and get things rolling.
I mean, if you guys are wondering, the Bills should be sitting at probably are they sitting at about 2 million in space? They may be about even now. Actually, they should be around 2 million in space because once the Bates contract comes out, they were sitting at around 6 with him pending. So now with him signed, they should probably be around 2 million. They're going to need around 9 million in cap space for their draft alone. That's how much their picks are going to cost, for 9 million in cap space. So, but they have a couple of restructures left in the bag. You can restructure Trey White, you can restructure Deion Dawkins. A couple of things you could do. You could release a Tyler Metcalf, you could release a Andre Smith. You get some money there if you really, really need to. Hell, to be honest with you, you can restructure Josh Allen if you want to. I don't think you want to do that yet. You want to save that to down the line, but you could do that too. So as far as the number 2 cornerback spot goes, I don't think they're gonna bring in a veteran. I really don't, unless it's really, really late in the camp. And like you said, it's a really cheap guy. I think that they're going to go high. I really do think they're going to go cornerback first round. I know a lot of people are saying at 25, you're taking the 4th or 5th best cornerback. But you got to realize that the 4th or 5th best cornerback in this draft, this draft is stocked with cornerbacks. It's stocked with them. They're good. It's not 1 or 2 when you're reaching. You're not reaching at 25 for the 3rd best or 4th best cornerback in this league. If Kaiir Elam is your 4th best cornerback in this draft, in past draft, he's probably a top 15 pick, especially at 6'2", 210, and running a 4.39 40 with very good ball skills. He's probably a top 15 pick. He's not a top 15 pick in this draft because of the guys above him. So I don't think it's a reach, but you may need to take 2 cornerbacks. And like you said, James, yes, you got to find guys who can run. Miami doesn't scare me. They don't scare me as an organization. They don't scare me as a team, because I think one thing we've learned from Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane in the Buffalo Bills is the fact that it's 70% of it is the players that you have. The other 30% is the aspect of how you run your organization and who you have running your organization. And I don't trust Miami yet. I thought the Tyreke Hill deal personally was a reach. The fact that you will pay a receiver $30 million is bad business. And I think it's even worse business when you're trying to get a receiver to develop your quarterback, to make your quarterback look good. I think you're going backwards at that point in time. But that's neither here or there. I would never turn on Tyreke Hill, but $30 million is a little insane, a little outrageous. And if Stephon Diggs has to build $30 million, I may be on the defense and being like, hey, I'm not doing that.
There's no receiver out there I will pay $30 million to. Nobody. No way. It eats too much cap space up. No way. Not saying he's a bad player. It's just me personally, I wouldn't build a team that way.
No, I agree with you there. But as far as me, like I said, I'm still high on a couple free agents. Kevin King. Kevin King is a guy that I really like. Obviously, his career has not been what it's supposed to be, but I think in this bend but don't break vanilla defensive system that we run our defensive backs, I think he would strive here with his size and his athleticism, because I think that at this number 2 spot now, you're trying to look for some type of size and athleticism. You had a little bit of size, Levi Wallace 6'1", but you didn't have the athleticism, so it didn't really match up.
But he was only 170.
Well, as far as the height goes, I'm not looking for another 5'9" cornerback. I'm looking for somebody who can match up against the bigger receivers. Trey Wayne's another guy.
Run. If you just might play real fast at 5'9", you got to take that. Because right now you're gonna need some dudes that can run.
Mm.
Some guys that can fly in this draft. I was high on a guy like Tariq Woolen, but the Bills didn't speak with him in the draft. And then when you see what he ran, I asked him, what do he really want to showcase in the draft? And he said that 40 time. And he went out there and ran a 4.2, 8, being 6'4". You know what I mean? Like, he was a converted. He's another Richard Sherman that played receiver that converted over to a cornerback. You know, he has a physicality, he had good ball skills. So, his stock catapulted all the way from being a 5th round pick to an early 2nd round pick right now,
which is dangerous.
Which is very, very dangerous. But it's some other cornerback with that upside as well. But me, I like the size. I like the speed. I like the physicality. Only thing that Levi Wallace had was the size. He did have the speed. He didn't have the physicality. Therefore, he was a liability out there in clutch situations, and it showed.
Yeah, I mean, you gonna you know, you just ain't gonna leave Levi alone.
I'm not
And
going to leave him
Levi
alone.
is gone.
I'm not, because
So
if
you
we
think
was
the Bills
playing the
will take two
vets,
corners?
they would be going right at him.
Got a man scouting report. What'd you say,
They'd be
James?
going right at him.
So you think the Bills will draft 2 corners?
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll draft 2. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I mean, I'm not saying they'd do no Carlos Basham, Greg Rousseau go first round and second round or second round, third round.
You gotta look peep the method of their madness in Carolina. 1 year they drafted all those damn D tackles. 1 year they drafted all those damn corners. Remember that? Remember they took Bradbury. They took, what's the other corner from Ole Miss? And was Josh Norman a part of that? All 3 of those guys, they did that back to back to back. They do that type of stuff. Wouldn't put it past me if they did that here in Buffalo. You know what I mean? To a degree. I mean, they already did it when they drafted 2 left tackles back to back. They already did it when they drafted defensive ends back to back. You know what I mean? So they have that pattern on doing stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
I think about it from this aspect. I think they like Nick McLeod a lot. I think he's like a real legitimate chance to make this roster. And then they like Dane Jackson a lot. So you look at those 2, then you look at Taron Johnson is a lot, and then you look at obviously Trey is a lot. So I kind of look at it that way. Like, I mean, I'm not saying they wouldn't, but I mean, it's something to think about. I wouldn't be like y'all saying that like now. I wouldn't be surprised if they did though.
They do got Elijah Griffin. They got they got Elijah Griffin too. So they do got some dogs in the making. And one thing I can say about the Bills, they do a good job of developing guys. You know what I mean? So
especially at that position.
Mm-hmm.
Especially at that position, they do a very good job of developing that position, and scouting it as well too. They do a very good job. Like, don't get me wrong, Levi Wallace, he had his faults here in Buffalo, but we also got Levi Wallace as a UDFA. So for him to start here for 3 years, we saved a whole lot of money because cornerback is a very expensive position,
exactly.
and that's kind of why, like, I'm to the point where I don't know if we're going to bring a veteran, because simply if they could, they probably would, but I don't know if we can afford it. And I'm high on Dane Jackson. I like Dane Jackson. I just love Dane Jackson as your number 4 cornerback. I don't love Dane Jackson as your top 3. If the Bills if we didn't have Taron Johnson, I wouldn't mind Dane Jackson playing the nickel. I'd have no problem with that. But I don't like in this defense where it's based off zone coverage. I don't have a problem with it. You know what I mean? Because
it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
No, I wouldn't. But anything outside that, I'm not a fan of. As far as the other guys, I think this draft is stocked with cornerbacks. I think you got to take 2 though. I think you take one in the first round, and I think you come back and you take one maybe in the 5th round, because I think one of the things that we haven't talked about is after this year, you're probably going to find another gunner. So when you start talking about the guy, my man Leroy was talking about Zion McCollum from, I think it was the Sam Houston State.
Mm-hmm.
He's another guy that's big and fast. He's not the greatest zone cover guy. He's solid in man, but as an athlete, you also talk about a special teams contributor as well, because that second cornerback, that's what you're looking for, is a special team contributor. And yeah, he's competing for someone like Dane Jackson. Like, hey, yeah, this guy's 6'4", and he's running a 4.3. You got to bring your A game. He's going to beat you for that spot, because there's multiple ways we could use him. So if I had to guess on the scale from 1 to 10, I'm worried about a level 4. It's a level 4 for me. I think you do have to address it. And I think that if you address it in the draft early, you're addressing it for the next 5 years. Instead of continually have to put this Band-Aid on. The EJ Gaines. Then to get the Levi Wallace. Then to put Levi Wallace in competition with Josh Norman. Then try to put him in competition with Dane Jackson. Stop putting the Band-Aid over it. Let's solve it for the next 3 to 4 years and then worry about it down the line.
Is EJ Gaines the best number 2 corner we had in recent years? I'll say yeah.
When he was healthy, yeah. I'd say yeah. I'd say yeah.
He got paid. He came here, balled out on that 1-year deal, and he got paid.
Yeah.
Browns paid.
What you think, Mookie? Is he the best number 2 since in this Brandon Beane era?
I mean, when you look at what they dealt with, of course. I mean, we really didn't have a Robin to Tre'Davious White Batman really yet. You know what I mean? So, Yeah, you have to say that, but he hasn't played in a while. I mean, to look at the production that he did produce as a number two corner, nobody came in and put those type of numbers up as a number two corner. You know what I mean? Since then, so yeah, we can say that. I mean, Levi has been solid, but once again, when the game is on the line, he get picked at. I mean, teams wasn't even throwing at Dane Jackson, Tre'Davious replacement. They going at your number two corner. You know what I mean? So he's been the number two corner since EJ Gaines. So yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's time to solidify that, because now, where are you going to go with the football when you got Von Miller and the crew breathing down your neck? All right, you got two All-Pro safeties. You got one of the best corners in the game in Tre'Davious White when he's healthy. So if you get another dog over there, say it like they do get a Patrick Peterson, you know what I mean? And I love that pick, because another LSU guy, he's a scheme fit. You know what I mean? And he's more veteran, more seasoned than Tre'Davious. You know what I mean? So where are you going to go with the football? You know what I mean?
Point of his career, he a heavy zone corner. At this point of his career, Mookie, you know that Patrick Peterson, that's the best for him.
Exactly.
Remember Phillip Gaines? He was pretty bad. Yeah, he was.
Phillip Gaines was bad. He had the size, but he was a more man,
he was
corner than a zone. And it's a big difference.
Well, I think that's too what people look at these draft times. They're like, this guy runs a 4.3. Well, are they better man cover or zone? Because just because you could play man doesn't mean you could pick up zone. And just like if you play zone, I mean, you can, most of the time you can play zone. You can't necessarily play man because you're playing zone for a reason a lot of times in a certain scheme. Those schemes they don't. It takes special people to be able to do both. And that's one of the things I do love about Tre'Davious White, and hopefully he comes back fully healthy, because Tre'Davious White can do both. And I think people tend to forget about that. He can play man on man. He can play zone. He could actually play all three spots too, because he can play nickel. So there's a lot of things you can do. And who's to say down the line that in a couple of years, the Bills don't want to put Tre'Davious White in the nickel and man up against the best slot receiver if they're going in a game, and you have two young guys who can run the outsides. It's not saying they will do that. They will do that, but you have the option to be able to do so. That's huge. You know what I mean? So I think they'll address it. I think they'll address it early. I think they know I think it's the last problematic area outside of punt return and kick return. I think that's probably the last problematic area with the Bates signing. And I think that's why this Bates signing had a huge ripple effect to our draft board and what we could do. We're not looking at offensive guard probably unless we really, really wanted to take the best player on the board, the best player available. We don't even have to look at offensive guard till like fourth round if you really don't, because you're talking about depth right now. So
you got to look at linebacker though. That's another eyesore.
They're definitely going to draft one.
Linebacker is an eyesore, bro, because Matt Milano, he's injury prone. So if he gets hurt, we got Tyrell Dobson. No disrespect, but you know what I mean. Do we bring AJ Klein back at a low ball contract? He's still out there. You know what I mean? But he's a liability too in coverage. You know what I mean? So Tremaine is on, basically his 5th-year option, and the jury is still on him. What do we do with him? Do we trade him? Do we pay him? So, I mean, they got to start looking at that too. And I think they're going to address that linebacker anywhere between 2nd and 3rd round. They're not going to wait to the 4th round to, play around with that. And once again, running back can still be in play too. You know what I mean? Just because we got Duke Johnson. And I still think that Devin Singletary is a 1,000-yard back, but I still see that the Bills need a power back, somebody with some size, short yards, red zone. You know what I mean? We need a big physical back that's going to get us tough yards and push that thing in. You know what I mean? We're on the goal line. We need that type of back, and there's a lot of them in this year's draft.
Well, and that's why I say, the Bills have a few luxury picks in this draft. The fact that you were able to sign O.J. Howard and take that number 2 tight end spot and add a former top 10 pick at that spot. You were able to add an elite pass rusher in Von Miller. The fact that you were able to revamp this entire defensive line the way you were for the price that you did in Daquan Jones and Tim Settle. It's left you in a position to take best player available, have a few luxury picks. And there's flaws, some holes that they got to fill. The matching to Ryan Bates, it allowed you to do a lot of different things going into this draft. And I will not rule out running back. I will not rule out Breece Hall, and I will not rule out Kenneth Walker, because you also have to realize after this season, Devin Singletary's contract is up. No one's talking about it because people don't talk about running backs' contracts anymore, really. Mm-hmm. But his contract is up after this year. Just saying, if the Bills could get a guy that could hit the home run, and this is nothing against Devin Singletary. I'm a big motor guy, but if you can get a guy that can take it 80 yards, they may not pass up on that. We know they did their work on Christian McCaffrey. We know they did their work on Saquon Barkley. So we know that they've thought about this. It's been in their minds somewhat. Not saying they'll act on it, but it's been on the table. So it's a lot of things going on. I mean, if you guys have any questions, we got about 5 minutes left in the show. We'll take a few questions here.
They signed Breida for that role to be that home run hitter. He just didn't work out.
But he's one of those guys you said. He was a speed guy. He wasn't a great football player who just speed, and feet and always translate to football.
Fans of speed. They see somebody run a 4.3 and all of a sudden they think they're good and they fall in love with
him. Speed won Al Davis a lot of games in the 90s and 2000s. Then didn't win him nothing. But yeah, if you guys have a few questions, we'll take a couple and I'll put them up on the screen and we'll answer the best we can. And but yeah, I mean, I'm excited about this offseason. Like I said, Muki, if you had to give a grade to Brandon Beane in the Bills offseason, what would you give it right now?
Oh, I'll give it an A.
Okay.
I give it an A. I think this is their best free agency by far. I mean, when you look at, okay, they did make the move for Stephon Diggs, but they didn't do anything else after that. But when you look at what they brought in this year I'm still trying to figure out how did they bring in 13 players in free agency and re-sign Randall, re-sign McKenzie, and who else? They re-signed one more. They re-signed Bates, obviously. You know what I mean? So, like, you did all of that and brought in 13 more pieces that could help your squad. Like, this roster right now is better than the 2021 team right now without even having a draft. Okay? When we look at this roster right now, it's potentially better than the entire roster from last year, and they still got a whole heap of draft picks, set. They got 8 draft picks to bring to the table, and it's not over with them in free agency. You know what I mean? It's a lot of free agencies that's going to want to find a home somewhere, and if they got to sign for the veteran minimum, which is 1 year, they're going to do that to compete for a Super Bowl. Trust and believe that.
Right. First question of the night comes from Jake Hutland. He asks, do we think for sure that Emmanuel Sanders is going to retire? Personally, I don't think anything's for sure. He can still play this game at a very high level. Obviously his age, and I think he wants one more Super Bowl ring personally. But obviously there's concern with his knees and his age. So, Mook, you think he's retiring for sure? I
think so. I mean, he said if he would running back, he would running back with the Bills. Obviously, it's not going to look that way. He's 35 years old. And he said, his kids are starting to, his son is starting to get into football. And, you start looking at that stuff too. You know what I mean? So as a receiver at 35, you had a syndrome like Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice played into his 40s, but, Emmanuel Sanders is no Jerry Rice. You know what I mean? So like you said, I wouldn't say never, but I would say 60-40 is looking like retirement. Unless, he's playing for a Super Bowl team. If he's playing for a team like the Rams or, he might go play with the Colts or, something like that. That's going to, present a challenge to him to want to, play for a Super Bowl. Then, yeah. If he's not playing for a Super Bowl, then, yeah, you might as well retire.
Yeah, I think I would lean on some more of the side of, I'm with Mookie there. I could see him coming back, halfway through the season. Somebody get an injury. He's going to stay in shape. So he get an injury or something like that. He come out, play for a contender, fight for a Super Bowl, something like that. Otherwise, like I said, I'll side with Mookie at 60-40.
Yeah. Dennis Mack asks, is Allen calling the plays here? I think he's pretty much meaning, is he like kind of calling the shots? I think it's about time. I mean, what is this is year 4? Is year 4, year 5? Year 5, right? Year 5. Yeah, I mean, this is the point in time where, you're working with your coordinator what you like to do. They're not putting you in a position telling you what you're going to do. So I'd say so. James?
With the first year coordinator, he's going to have his input for sure. Calling him, he had the ability to audibles and all of that, but Ken Dorsey going to really this is gonna be a year he get a feel. Next year, probably, yeah. This year with a new OC, I don't know.
Yeah. Moot.
Dorsey got to put his stamp on this offense right away. Now, is it something that Josh Allen is familiar with? Of course. Dorsey is going to make sure he calls the plays that Josh is comfortable with to make any type of audibles or alterations he see fit in it. But the plays is going to be called by Ken Dorsey, and then Josh Allen would, perform after that. It's not like, he's Peyton Manning or something, and, you got this figurehead offensive coordinator over here. You know what I mean? That's just not the case. Ken Dorsey is definitely going to put his stamp on his offense this year. And, I think you'll see a better play out of Josh Allen in year 5 because of it.
And last question from my man, Cody Wells. Cody asked, and Mookie, you can take it first. If they trade up, who do you feel they target? I know I got a name on my mind. I want to see if you guys got it too.
Oh, is it going to be?
Yeah, it's on you. You go first. Go ahead.
If I'm trading up, I'm packaging pick 25, and I'm packaging up my first round pick for next year. And man, let's go get the best cornerback out there,
Okay.
Sauce Gardner. Man, we might play around with this shit. That's right. If we're gonna be splashy and explosive, if we're trying to make this Super Bowl run, go get the best corner out there. Go get Sauce Gardner because what are we doing? That next year pick, we're trying to win a Super Bowl. That next year pick is gonna be pick number 32. All right, it's pick 25 right now, so we're going to just risk the best available player again next year. We know what we getting out of Sauce Gardner, so package those 2 picks, move up. If he's around, let's say pick 11, pick 12, you package those 2 first-round picks, you go get Sauce Gardner.
Mallory, I know you didn't do too much draft coverage yet. Is one guy, even if it's not a guy position that you would target early, if they were going to trade up for something.
You're going to trade up. It got to be a playmaker, receiver, corner. It got to be a playmaker. You can't trade up for, I don't know. I'm going to say guard because we're talking about guard. Playmaker. Jamison Williams. You go get a corner that is going to be a game changer. The Bills need to load up on playmakers this year. Like, you can get playmakers on 4-year, 5. When that first round pick is that exercise your option, but you need to surround them with playmakers because you're not going to be able to afford to pay people like that. So you need to load up on playmakers on offense and defense. So it will have to be a playmaker for me.
I was saying with Mookie, it'll be Sauce Gardner. Yeah, it's not another player at top in this draft I'm trading up for if it's not Sauce Gardner. So I'm with that. Actually, we got a couple more questions and then we'll quick questions. Kebby asked, do y'all think the Bills will finally beat KC? I think we already have. I think we had them beat. I think we beat them twice last year, technically. We just ended up losing that last game in 13 seconds. So I think so. Our friend Marcy asked, how much, and this is the last question tonight, how much is Josh Allen going to run this year? Because I think this is a very good question because Sean McDermott did say today or yesterday, I believe, that they want it to evolve, meaning he's trying to put his quarterback in danger. And if you guys look at the stats, he had 122 carries this year, and that was the most carries of his career for 763 yards. I think scrambles is one thing, but the design runs, I think he's going to run less. James, running game, Josh Allen, a little bit less this year?
Yeah, I think he'll run less. When you sign Duke, they'll use Singletary more like they should have last year. But, I think they had to out of necessity last year because outside of Singletary, who could you trust? Zach Moss, don't get me started. And Brady, he wasn't active for a lot of games. So you had to run him. It was out of necessity. You really had to. Well, you won't get the ball to besides Singletary. So I think he'll run a lot less this year. I think Ken Dorsey will do it, and you got better personnel.
Mook, think he runs a little bit less this year?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt he runs less. You don't bring in a guy like Aaron Cromer to run your offensive line if you're not trying to run the football. And, Dable just had a love infatuation with Josh. He let Josh pretty much do anything. Hey, run the ball. Hey, throw deep on 3rd and 1. You know what I mean? Like, he just let Josh pretty much do what he wanted to do. And sometimes that kind of lost us a few ball games because of it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think those carries get cut in half. Josh Allen will probably only have 60 runs. Now, if he's running, it's because pass protection is broken down. Nobody's open, and then Josh Allen will do what Josh Allen does. From a design standpoint, that's definitely going to be cut in half. If he had 120 carries off design runs, that number is definitely, I think, will be cut in half this year because, like you said, they're bringing in Duke Johnson. They revamping this offensive line. Devin Singletary can rush for 1,000 yards if given the opportunity, and they still need a big power back that could help you out in the red zone and short yardage situations.
No, I agree with both of you gentlemen. I think that it's a no-brainer. He's going to run less. Like I said, as far as design runs, I think you're going to cut most of those out. You may even cut a lot of the goal line design runs out too as well.
Yeah. We had to last year, man. We had running backs, number 2 running backs getting hip checked on the 3-yard line and falling. So
James is still mad about that Patriot. James still hot about that Patriot play.
Dude, you 225 and you get hip checked and fall.
Everybody got their thing, man. Everybody got their thing.
The running back, man, you know, he feel a certain kind of way about that because he the ball in the goal line. He know what he gonna do with that thing.
That's all attitude, man. That's all attitude there. You got hip checked, you ain't got no buck in your heart. That's a whole nother story, though.
Everybody got their thing. Mookie thing is gone for Scout Report. Levi Wallace, we call him. My thing was Starla Tule, he's gone. But James, your issue's still here. So we gonna see what happens.
A hip check fall is worse than anything Levi did or Star did.
I don't know about Starla toilet paper, baby.
I don't know about Star now, man. I ain't gonna give you that one now.
Dude, Star. When have you seen somebody just push him and he fall on his back or something? The man got hip checked on the 3-yard line, man.
His feet got tangled, man. But no, guys, it was another good show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We should be back next Tuesday. We'll see what the Bills do, man. I mean, Ryan Bates is back. The offensive line 5 linemen look set, and actually 5 set that we're actually happy with. I think most of Bills Mafia can say that we feel solid about what we got going on that side of the ball, or that side of the ball as far as offensive line up front. We feel solid about the defensive line. Some people still weary about the linebacker spot. You know, that's a give or take position. You know, I'm okay with it. I don't know if I'm okay with Tremaine Edmonds long term for the money he's going to command, because I think he's about to have a breakout year behind this defensive front. But obviously, the number 2 cornerback spot, they addressed my want in the number 3 receiver spot. So happy about that. And we'll see what they do. I know a lot of questions are running back. I would not rule out running back at all. I know Leroy asked that in the chat. We didn't get to it, but I would not rule out running back early at all. If the Bills feel like that's going to put them on the top, they're going to grab it. So I wouldn't rule it out at 25. I know me and James, we wanted Travis Etienne last year, so I think that answers the question about how we technically feel about running back. If it's going to put you over the top, you do it. But if you draft a running back early, you better make it work, because you're going to look like the Giants and Saquon, or the Panthers Christian McCaffrey down the line, and people will be like, hey, what the hell were you thinking? So, but as always, man, thank you guys for tuning in. This is nothing personal. It's just Bills. I'm your host, JTM, and I'll catch you guys next week, man. Same time, same place. As always, go Bills. Peace.
These new Checkers fry season chicken tenders are for Joe. Joe wants his son's project to be number 1. Woo. So we took our number 1 famous seasoned fries and added the same secret blend of spices to create Checkers' new fry seasoned tenders. Made with 100% white meat chicken and all coated with our famous fry seasoning. Now that's a winning combination. Genius recognizes genius, Joe. Come get your new fry seasoned tenders. You've earned it. Join Checkers Rewards for a free Buford or Mother Cruncher.